Welcome everybody to the Back Pocket Review Show. A massive round of footy has come and gone. It was the top versus the bottom, and only one bottom team won. And do you know who that was?
That was Sydney.
That was Sydney. That was.
It was still favourites in that game, so I'm not sure it fully counts. Okay, no,
That's a technicality. That's a technicality. We don't have Kate today, of course. She's unwell at home. We wish her all the best. But let's jump right into the profit and loss, because every single week on the Thursday, we give our best bet across the entire weekend. And how did we do here? Brownie, Archie Roberts, no good.
Let me down, Arch. Let me down. Geez, he was good. Like, he tackled a lot and he smothered a lot and he was right in there, but he just didn't get the nut. So that was very disappointing.
You got to get the nut. It was disappointing.
When you're defending too often, you do not get the football.
And have a look at that pig down there, looking like a beanbag full of gravy. Fat as can be, $134. It's quite the turnaround from how I started the year, Nathan.
Yeah, one bet every week. Doesn't matter how the rest of them go. If you get your one bet up,
it's the only one you want to get to. Zach, let's jump into your bet here, because Errol Goulden got it right on the money for you.
Yeah, incredible. Well, I called it. Likes playing against the Dockers. Had a few weeks out with injury. He's come back. Looks like he's back to his best. Absolutely cakewalked over the 25 disposal line as we see him skunk a free kick here with 70 seconds left to get his 25th.
As you say, he cakewalked over? What did he exactly
moonwalk. Just it was never in doubt. So 70 seconds to go. He got his 25th disposal.
That's good.
Now, we've hunted down footage because not many people actually know that the GWS versus Eagles game was actually televised on Friday night. But Aaron Cadman, with Jesse Hogan out, I had to pivot to Cadman for 2+. And I'll tell you what, he did it pretty easy there. Again, smack bang on the 2.
He doesn't miss either. This is the thing. When you back players who can kick the football, it genuinely helps when you're going for goals. And I noticed that Kate is only on $80. She's hasn't troubled the scorers yet. Is that why she's not here today?
Well, I tell you what, Kate started very, very well as well across the year. But once the heat's been put on, and
once the pressure's on,
what are you,
Kate? You got a lift.
The Giants taking on Geelong. Do we back Cadman back in? Jesse Hogan, I imagine, back into the lineup.
Yeah, I'd be happy to go with him again. He's clearly the focal point now in Hogan's absence, but I do think this will be a much better version of the Cats we see than we did in Geelong. Fortunately for them, this is up in Sydney. They'll get the job done, but Cadman is the guy.
7 last time, Jesse Hogan.
He's tough to catch sometimes. He's either giving you 1 or 2 or he's giving you 8.
They're a lot better down back with Jack Henry playing, so I think the numbers tell us that.
What was your takeaway from the weekend?
My takeaway from the weekend is Smith sick, head Holmes. So every time, the last 2 games when Bailey Smith has been out, he's had 36 on the weekend and 40. So with the absence of Bailey Smith, you go on Holmes because he gets a lot of disposals.
That's nice. And we had a lot of time to know that he was out as well, because that was right a game time decision. So a lot of time to pivot. Zach, what was yours?
Well, you would have known if you're at the ground.
Well, this Zach Merrett, he's been moved around positions, but clearly this guy is one of the best in the game when he's playing on ball, and you cannot move him from the middle of the ground now. Surely had 40 on the weekend back inside.
So is that a personal message from you to Brad Scott? Do not move him.
When it comes to coaching, I think I know a little bit more than Brad Scott. So I just can't see why you would shift him out of there going forward. However,
Brad Scott never kicked a goal off the siren, did he?
Oh, it's not for everyone, that one. That's big boy moments. However, he is coming up against the Tigers, so across his entire career, every game he's played against the Tigers, he's kicked over 30, averages 34 disposals. So it wouldn't bother me if he was playing half-back. I think I'd be happy to go to him in the
That could be your best bet
disposal markets again. It very well might be.
Get in first.
I'll tell you what, we've got to get in the WhatsApp group before you can get that one in. Do you think the Merrett experiment going down forward is over now and he's just going to stick to the midfield and get his numbers?
You never know, because they obviously had a reason why they were doing it. They obviously wanted other players to run through the midfield to see what stock they have. I didn't understand it. I think he needs to play as he does, across the ground. I like Nick Martin playing in the midfield too. I like him forward of centre. And when Caldwell's in there, I like him to play a bit more of a defensive role backwards of centre. And I think those 3, if you have those 3 starting as your midfielders and then other players rotate through there, I think that works better. But Zach Merrett is a bona fide midfield. Start there. Play 100 minutes there.
Let's quickly attack. It's early days, so we don't exactly have the markets up now, but Essendon taking on the Tigers. Now, the line for this one's 15.5. Feels a little too short for me against the Tigers team, who I said was going to get rattled.
I agree with that.
By Geelong,
and they did. Trust Essendon, though. That's the only question. I look at that and I go, gee, that looks like a good bet. Plus over 15 for the Bombers against the Tigers. But can you trust the Bombers? You haven't been able to trust the Bombers since the year 2000. That's a long time.
It's certainly a long time. And they also, their forward line doesn't exactly, there's no one that jumps out to me. It's usually when the Tigers are playing, I want to take someone for 5, 6 goals. There's not really anyone in that Essendon forward line that jumps out to me as someone to attack on that.
No, and they tried to put Noah Bolter in the forward line to create a target, which means not only do you lose whatever impact he can provide down back, but he didn't look like he was much chop up in the forward line down at GMHBA, so it's not his comfort zone. So I'd be steering clear of the Tigers in most markets going forward.
Well, we're steering clear of the Tigers. A lot of people steering clear of North Melbourne for a lot of time as well. And one of your favourite players in the league, you hype him up all the time, Luke Parker. With LDU going down, he's going to step into an even bigger role. So
LDU heads off with concussion, so we won't see him next week. And it begs the question, who steps up in his absence? And he's a number 3 disposal getter for North this year, LDU. So number 1 and 2 is Daniel and Sheasel. Now, his absence won't impact them. So you look at Luke Parker, he's number 5 disposals for North Melbourne this year, and he tends to win a lot of the same type of footy as LDU. It's that kind of contested inside player. So LDU's absence opens the door, I think, for Luke Parker, who is having a sneaky good year. Didn't play last week, got over that 25 disposal line, 28 and 29 in his last 2 games. And with no LDU, you'd have to imagine that's a good value option.
Well, I was going to back him. When the markets came out, he was still in the market. I think his disposal line was 23.5. Happy to take that over. He had 80% centre bounce attendances. So when your players are taking the centre bounces, they're getting a lot more disposals. So I'm happy to take Luke Parker. I reckon you're going to get a very good, particularly with our new odds, you can do 23s, 24s. So I'm happy to back that in. What do you like the most about Luke Parker? Because I feel like that you and him clashed a bit when you played.
We'd never clashed when we played. I respect greatly what he did, and I'm glad.
Well, that's not what you told us.
Well, I told you that in confidence.
Okay.
What are you twitching?
No, he's been a contested animal for a very long time.
2 bulls
and you
going
tend
out
to get
in panic. 2 bulls.
You tend to get a bit feisty with those type of players.
Who's the bigger bull, you or Luke Parker?
Luke Parker's had a much better career than I did.
He's a good man, Luke Parker. Did some very, very good work for the Sydney Swans as well. Who's hot and who's not?
Let's look at the best graphics in the business and who is hot. Let's go. Jake Lloyd. Last 3 games, he got dropped not that long ago. He's come back and playing some nice footy. Cossie Pickett, you got $2 for 2 goals on the weekend, 7 or 8. I reckon that price will be gone, but I'm happy to back him again. Brodie Grundy, 5 of his last 6 games, the big boy, 20 plus, and your man, Cadman, 2+ goals, 5 of his last 6.
He's been playing like a Cadman recently.
Cadman.
Really stepping up.
And then
your Swans on that list.
Jai Simpkin. He's playing a bit of a different role. None of his last 4. Charlie Curnow, no goals in his last 3. Matty Rowell, he's just been a bit quiet. Preface that by saying twice out of those 6 he's had 24, so he's been stiff. And then Ollie Henry, he is as cold as frozen.
Hold on. As cold as frozen.
I was trying to think of the
I could see your brain ticking over.
And it didn't go
Elsa.
for me.
Yeah.
Elsa.
And not just that, Browny, but you're sitting here with a football card of yourself.
Yeah, you brought
just
that in.
posted up in front of you. Look at that right there.
yeah.
Unbelievable stuff. Hoping to get that one signed later. But it's time for the Magnet Movers. Fantastic debut game from one of the best names in footy. Sounds like it's off a Hollywood movie. Roan Steele from Collingwood. Roan Steele. Sounds like something out of Zoolander.
Yeah, that's a good one by the parents.
Yeah. As you think he played though? Do you think we're going to
looking at me?
him?
It was an incredible debut game, 19 disposals on the wing, and he strikes me as one of those players you're going to want to start backing him before the market catches up, because he is playing for one of the best teams, if not the best team in the competition, and he's going to get plenty of opportunities to win the footy, especially playing on the wing at the MCG, where Collingwood don't often move from. I think I'll be getting in on him before the market catches up.
Oh, so there we go. So you're not flashing the pan right now. You think it's going to be a regular occurrence?
If he's playing for that side, he's going to find the footy. Now, you wouldn't stretch it to 25 and 30 this early in his career, but you'd certainly be looking at him at that sort of 20 disposal line.
Certainly some value. What about for the Swans?
Yeah,
Braden Campbell playing a very good tagging role. Is he going to do that again this week?
James Jordan did the job, and now Braden Campbell's doing a job as well. So you'd be looking at the Swans this week and who they're playing, and you'd be looking at the halfback flankers, and you might go, I'm going to just step around those guys. And the other one, Max Hall, going into the midfield for St Kilda the last couple of weeks, kicked 3 goals, also had 29 touches. So I'm keeping a good eye on him. He's another magnet mover that we forgot about, but I'm putting him in there, putting him on your radar, because I'm going to back Max Hall. There's only a few players at St Kilda worth backing at the moment. Nazai Wanganeen-Miller, his price is gone, but the algorithms won't have caught up to Max Hall.
The algorithms.
Algorithms.
Love it when you get into that sort of technical chat. Let's get into some more here with the market movers. Okay, let's kick this one off. The Premiership. Now, Collingwood, of course, still sitting up the top of this market. You said one of, before when you mentioned them, the main contenders there. Who in that list is jumping out to you a little bit more with these new prices? Nothing really changing too much outside of Fremantle on the drift.
Well, if you were bullish on Freo and you thought they had a chance before the Sydney game, I wouldn't be deterred. In fact, I'd be tempted by that price. I don't think much has changed. They ran into a Sydney team that'd be feeling pretty good about themselves right now, but it's very hard to see beyond those kind of three top teams. Clearly Collingwood deserve to be favourites, and the next two are...
Western Bulldogs haven't moved. They remain the same. They're fourth in the market. But out of all the top 9 teams that are vying for the 8 spots at the moment, the Western Bulldogs more points against than any other team in that top 9. So there's a big question mark on how they defend. Is it September defence worthy? We know they can attack, and I just don't think they can win the flag the way they defensively set up at the moment.
Daniel Hoyney from Champion Data certainly sitting in the same camp with you. Some changes that need to be made, along with the Crows in that sort of conversation as well. Jeremy Cameron almost unbackable, of course. Jesse Hogan missing it. Of course, Jeremy Cameron having a massive year, but injuries have depleted that little bottom section.
Yeah, I mean, it's done and dusted at this stage, and it would take an unfortunate injury, you feel, for Jez not to win it from this point. I did call this pre-season. I just wanted to flag that. My brain is massive.
Yeah.
What's my favourite part of this program?
When we finish and leave.
Exactly. But before that, I also like the Brownlow tracker.
The Brownlow tracker is good. I invented this Brownlow tracker. And let's go straight into it because Nick Dacos is at the top of the tree right now.
Finally,
I gave him
tracking
3.
this.
I looked at it. I wanted to give Jordan Dawson a vote. I just couldn't fit him in for a vote yesterday. And then the Essendon Gold Coast game. I gave Noah Anderson 2. I gave Zach Merrett in a losing side the 3. Sarong got tagged. Smith didn't play. Now, Nick Dacos, for me, has a 1-game lead at the moment. Noah Anderson's coming hard. Bailey Smith gets to play. He's missed a few games, Bailey Smith, so average votes per game, he would probably be winning. Bailey Smith and Nick Dacos there. So second page, Connor Rozee, didn't have him voting. Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller is coming hard. Now, if some of those are 2s or 3s, I might be wrong. I've only got him in for 1-3 this year. St Kilda haven't won that many games, but he is right up there all the way down to Maxwell Gawn.
$501 as well. And remember, when these markets we get close to the Brownlow, you get the top 5, top 10, top 20 at the moment.
Are you with me
as well.
with St Kilda? If they play well or they get close, so they lose. They've lost a few games by about 2 or 3 goals, and he's had over 30 disposals. I think against the Gold Coast Suns, he had a 36 disposal game. So the umpires are going to look at that. There's only one player to vote for St Kilda, and I think he's going to vote in some of their losing games as well. And in their winning games, he's very noticeable off half-back. He's a beautiful player and he catches the eye. So don't be surprised if Wanganeen-Miller votes really well, even if St Kilda don't go anywhere near finals.
Yeah, it's a problem with the voting system, isn't it? You could be best player every week, but if your team doesn't win, you just don't tend to get the votes. So he will get a lot of single votes, you'd imagine, maybe a couple of 2s in wins or 3s in wins.
They lost the game on the weekend, but he would have got 3. He had 43.
But it has to be, that is such an exceptional return that it's noticeable.
Is just onto that, there's people getting, with you had Zach Merrett 3 votes.
Yep.
Is Zach Merrett as a guy who always gets these very, very high possession games? Obviously the last few weeks playing forward didn't get them, but are umpires, do they almost grow weary of, when they look at Zach Merrett in a losing game and they see 40-something possessions, they're not going to look at it the same as they would see, say, a more new face on the scene in Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller. I think he's more likely to get those sort of surprise votes than a guy like Zach Merrett.
Absolutely. The only thing with Zach Merrett last week is he hadn't been playing midfield, so I reckon it would have been really noticeable. He was back in there under their noses. They were up at 3/4 time. Anderson had 30 and kicked 2. Merrett had 40. Merrett was brilliant. His foot skills were outstanding, and I just thought, even though they lost and they fell away in the last quarter, I thought Merrett was the best man on the
Any
ground.
guesses on who the most punted on player of the round was?
Nick Dacos.
Bang, you read the rundown. Fantastic. Nick Dacos, most punted on player, 36% of bets on 25 plus and 28% on any time a goal scorer. Really starting to find his feet. A guy that's copped a little bit of, in my opinion, maybe a bit of unnecessary criticism this year.
He certainly didn't probably need to find his feet. He's a very, very good player, but he didn't, and Hoyney said he has not, his rating wasn't as high as what it has been in previous years, but the last couple of games, particularly the one where he got tagged, I thought that was an outstanding game up against Windhager. And now the games he hasn't been tagged, he is absolutely off the leash at the moment, and he's using the ball really well. I think the big knock on Nick Dacos was his use of the ball. He's a beautiful kicker of football, but under pressure when you get tagged, it is hard to use the ball when you've got a lot of space. Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller doesn't get tagged at the moment, so he's got a lot of time, move, use the ball. Zach Merrett probably not getting tagged as much, so Nick Dacos does.
When's the last time a player got this much attention this early in his career? Because he's been getting tagged for a couple of years now. Can you remember an example of a player that...
Maybe Chris Judd, yeah. Juddy's probably the only other one.
So he set the bar pretty high.
We're starting to ask questions about data and all that sort of stuff. It's time to bring in the one man who can do that, Daniel Hoyney.
Hoyney!
Hoyney. It's time to welcome in Daniel Hoyney from Champion Data. He lifts up, he puts down, but you usually control the narrative throughout the week. And today, Finn Callahan's the player you want to talk about.
Yeah, so GWS have now won 3 in a row and are positioning themselves to have a crack at finishing top 4. And the reality is that this guy is the number one centrepiece to whether or not GWS are going to be able to challenge for that top 4 spot, or if they're just going to be hovering around that 5 to 9 position. Because his performances in wins and losses this season, the differential between those games is the 5th biggest of any midfielder in the competition. So
who's number 1?
So Hugh McCluggage is number 1.
Huge.
So if you're going after anyone at GWS, it's obvious that it's this guy. Because the reality is for GWS, how they want to play is off the back of their transition game out of their back half. And time again, you see this guy being involved in those chains, charging through the centre of the ground, and then being able to deliver the ball inside 50 and get those scoreboard returns. So AFL average is about 35, 36 points in terms of how many points you score out of your back half. Against Brisbane, they score 68. He was integral to that. Round 0, we talked about how good of a game he was in that particular performance. 64 points for GWS. And then coming up against Geelong this week, in round 9 against them, they scored 56 points. He was integral to that. So what he does on Saturday against Geelong, but then more importantly in the final 7 home and away games and then the final series, will determine how far this team goes in 2025.
Yeah, well, they have a couple of weapons they can try and use to nullify Finn. So the obvious one is Oisin Mullen. He's gone in, tagged some of the better players in the competition. If they choose to maybe send him to a Toby Green or a dangerous small, which is a role he also plays, it'll be a Tom Atkins, but there'll be a highly accountable role for him inside. I like Oisin Mullen. He seems to be cutting his teeth doing that role really well. But if it's not him, it'll be Tom Atkins standing side by side for the entirety of the game.
Are they big enough to do the job? Like, for a midfielder, he's quite a big size, isn't he?
Yeah, well, so Oisin's played on a whole variety of them. So he did the Nick Dacos job a number of weeks ago. He's been given Jason Horne-Francis, who's as brutish as anybody. But, I mean, Tom Atkins, he's not the biggest guy ever, but there isn't a much better contested type player in the game. So it'll be one of those two.
I think you just got to find a way in which you can just stop his run out of the back half, and whether or not that's just blocking him or whatever it might be, but take him out of corridor, force him wide, because you just see he just runs those lines up and down the corridor, and as I said, he's just so important to what they do.
Am I getting a bit of deja vu with this Finn Callahan chat?
Well, yeah, from memory, he had an incredible opening round, as you said, but come the midway point of the season, his performances at that stage had left a little bit to be desired. So what's changed from, say, the midway point of the season to now? What's he doing differently now?
Yeah, so his first game of the year was one of the highest rated games of this season. Then his next 6 or 7 weeks of the year, he was outside the top 200. His ball use took a significant hit, and as a result, their on-field performance took a bit of a hit in that time. Now he's come back to being able to be that ball-using, damaging midfielder with ball.
And now you're back on him now that he's gone okay.
When the facts change, we are jumping all on.
Quickly, Browny, would you over and under on Finn Callahan without the exact number right now? Do you think Geelong can do a job on it?
Well, I think Geelong have shown they're happy to tag at the moment, and they've got 3 different options to tag. So I think they'd be mad not to tag him. So if you're going to back Finn Callahan this week, I'd be taking the unders. What
about the most consistent man in football, Jack Crisp?
Yeah, I think this guy, he's a Champion Data favourite because he just constantly goes under the radar, constantly just has those 20 to 25 disposals, might kick a goal here, uses it well. So nothing's absolutely through the roof, but the absolute level of consistency, he'd be one of the most consistent players in the competition. And this season, he's actually rated as the 12th best player in the game. So when it comes to All-Australian consideration, and we know that they, and how they judge wingers and whether or not they actually select a winger. If they're going to select a winger, I know Ollie Dempsey has been, probably spoken about as the most damaging wingman in the competition. He's probably dropped away a little bit over the last 5 or 6 weeks. This guy's level of consistency is absolutely through the roof and has to be in All-Australian consideration to be on that wing role this season.
Good price.
Very good price.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at what he's done over a period of time, over a 10-year period, 5 times he's been rated inside the top 30 players in the competition. And if this rating of number 12, continues, that will be 6 times. And we fast track ahead to September. We're only 7 weeks away from finals coming. This guy's finals record is up there with the best that we've ever seen. So our rating system goes back to 2010. So a minimum of 1,000 minutes played of finals period in that time. Dustin Martin, we know that he's by far and away the best finals player that we've seen. Adam Goods, Hall of Famer. Dane Swan, Hall of Famer. Jack Crisp, the third best finals player we've seen in 15 years. So he's setting himself up, like the whole Collingwood Footy Club, to have a serious tilt at this flag, and I just hope he gets recognised in All-Australian consideration.
Hasn't been All-Australian yet?
No, hasn't made it on All-Australian levels.
So when you look at it, Nick Dacos is pushing his case for All-Australian. You think his brother, Josh Dacos, is pushing his case. You got Jamie Elliott. Who else are we talking?
Darcy Cameron, potentially. Yeah. Tough one to make it in, but there's arguments.
Because the more they put in there, there's going to be one unlucky one to squeeze out. They go, oh, do we have too many Collingwood players in there? But the $26, I'm happy to find out. I'm happy to have a tenner on that.
Yeah, and as I said, just the level of consistency probably sees him go under the radar, because we don't see him have those absolute ridiculous games where it stands out. But I just hope he just gets recognised this season.
The hype train that is the AFL media has been telling me that Levi Ashcroft is almost unbeatable in the Rising Star. Surely you sit in the same camp.
No, I don't. Levi will be a star of this competition. I think that we've got no doubt about that. However, we do like dropping a however on this show. Reality is the Rising Star gets voted on 2025 performance, not expectation and what's going to happen down the track. And we thought with 7 games to go, this is where the eligible players who can win the Rising Star sit in our rating system. So to put what Curtin and Reid and Langford are actually doing into a bit of consideration, our rating system, as I said, is 15 years into it. Only 8 times has a first-year player been rated inside the top 100 players in the competition. So what Reid and Langford are doing in particular with their first seasons needs to be recognised. But Levi Ashcroft this season is rated outside the top 200 players, 228th in the comp. Archie Roberts is rated 207th in the comp. So what Reid, Langford and Curtin are now doing is by far and away panels ahead of what Levi Ashcroft and Roberts are doing. So I think at times we can get a little bit lazy and just assume, Levi's a star, he gets 15, 20 disposals, he's playing for Brisbane. He doesn't need to be a star because, he's surrounded by them. But what the other 3 are doing in particular, it really should be down to one of those 3 to actually win the Rising Star.
What you just said there, he doesn't necessarily need to be a star in that Brisbane lineup. Does some of that go into the voting and what we see reflected in those odds that Ashcroft doesn't necessarily have to be dominating the ball winning in a team like Brisbane?
And he doesn't. He doesn't. He gets maybe, what's the average, around 17 or 18? Yeah.
And he's just been put into this Brisbane team nicely, a lot of wing time recently, a little bit of half forward time, bit of exposure. It's a nice gig and he's going to be a superstar. But I'm not worried about what he's going to be. I'm worried about what's happening in 2025. And the reality is, as I said, the other 3, Curtin, Langford and Reid, it really should be coming from one of those 3.
I'm glad you lifted the curtain on that.
You said you had a really nice Hugh one before that just got left. When he asked, you said that's huge, and he got left with absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I'm back in Curtin.
Look how happy he is with himself.
You'll come to know he's pretty happy with himself the majority of the time. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. We will see you on Thursday. Coming up soon, Quick Hands. Here we go, time for Quick Hands, the burning questions we have after round 17. Brownie, Zach, let's kick it off here. I'll go to you first because you might be biased here. Geelong to make the grand final is good value.
Very good value. I think they're going to finish second. They've got so many games to win at home. I don't see how they don't finish in the top 2, in my opinion, but I think they get all their way through to a grand final.
$2.70 for your boys is still pretty good value, I'd imagine.
Yeah, despite me retiring last year, they seem to have coped with it extraordinarily well.
Really well.
Yeah, on field.
Thriving, actually.
Have you been invited
the
back?
club's in shambles. Friday night doubleheaders are a fizzer.
They are. They're absolutely a fizzer. I think we should get rid of them. I don't even think we knew that the other game was on. You suggested that. Carlton, Collingwood, it should have been just... Because then we had 2 games overlapping on a Sunday, which doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, it didn't make much sense, but overlapping, I don't think it works. But I think there's a world where you can have them where they are back-to-back. If it's a WA game or something where one starts a bit earlier, you could potentially have it work.
Yeah, they're probably trying to appease the WA crowd, say they've given them a Friday night game knowing full well the rest of Australia is not going to be watching. So
West Coast up against GWS.
Yeah,
the one they gave them.
Yeah, tick 2 boxes. Both clubs are happy and the rest of the world don't care.
But this one for Friday night fixturing. Suns versus Pies on the Gold Coast. Now, that is great fixturing.
Really good fixturing. They got this one right. Saturday's games are pretty good as well this weekend. I think there'll be more Collingwood supporters at the ground than Gold Coast supporters.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me as well because it's a nice little travel destination to get down there as well, especially this time of year. They wouldn't mind getting out.
Yeah, I like it. There's only been a few occasions when there's been a really healthy crowd up in Gold Coast, and I've enjoyed it.
Would you agree? $7 for 40 plus. I don't think we're going to be going 40 plus for either team, but there's a bit of talk around saying that this is the biggest game in the history of the Gold Coast.
1 to
Suns.
39, either team.
You'll take 1 to 39, but do you think the gravitas, if they win this one, this is the gravitas of this game for Gold Coast? Are you going to be a legitimate believer, or do you think, again, it's just they're still just rolling?
I wouldn't be a legitimate believer. I expect they should go very close to beating them at home, but when they come to Melbourne at the MCG, I think they'll be found wanting.
We're going to talk more about it on Thursday. Are you giving those little Suns a chance?
In this game, not for a granny.
Oh, there we go. Not for a granny. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We will see you on Thursday across that entire weekend around 18.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.